The third presenter is Mr. Samir Frangier. He was not able to arrive. So I give the floor to Mr. Abdul Majeed Al-Najjar, a member of the Constituent Assembly in Tunisia. He is also a member of the important international organization, and he is Vice Secretary of the European Council Research Council based in Paris, which tries to study Islamic law and society. The word is to him. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to greet everyone here. I would like to thank you, everyone who organized this seminar, this meeting, important meeting. We agree on the fact that religions, and amongst those Islam, create relationships on the basis of peace and not violence. And we also agree on the fact that Islam, amongst all the other religions, even though it confesses the human nature as featured also as the possibility of being violent, but this has been faced by Islam and has been controlled by the state and the individuals. But when the state sees the violation of its sovereignty, then it must react in a controlled way. Today it seems that this is not the question, because we are finding groups and religious categories which pretend to be faithful but promote violence, terrible violence, as we're seeing these days in terrible events. Those groups which pretend to be Muslims and practice violence not against those who are not Muslim, but also on Muslims themselves in Iraq, in Syria, in Algeria, in other places. What is the reason? It seems that the most important thing is to search for the reasons for that phenomenon, which has become overwhelming. Now, it seems that there are some causes, multiple causes, amongst which two main ones. The first is ignorance of Islam. The modern state, founded in Islamic world 50 years ago, has monopolized instruction and has taken away instruction from the civil society and has emptied its real and true Muslim teaching. For example, in Tunisia, the true Islamic teaching was at university, and this religious university gave the true concept of Islam, and there was no extremism or violence. In the modern state, on the other hand, this university has closed. So in the name of modernity and in the name of other slogans, other mottos. So there has not been this reliable religious source, and young people have become to take up religion from other not reliable sources. Sometimes these are contradictory, and we have seen violence grow. The same happens in other countries. The second cause is the feeling of injustice and oppression. You all know that in our world there are many injustices, oppressions, multidimensional ones, cultural, political, economic, etc. there's a sort of despotism by governors in the Islamic world. Sometimes this is unbelievable. There's also an oppression by the biggest power in the third world countries, for example, by the north or the south. The powers, economic powers, cultural powers. Therefore, there's this feeling of injustice which has unwelcome effects. These young people ignore the real religion because there is a doctrine which in Islamic religion with certain rules in which, of course, one has to struggle against injustice, but not with violence. But nowadays we have to face these minds in which, and sometimes violence is used, and they have radical behaviors. Yesterday at the opening assembly, we have suffered very much with what some groups are practicing in Iraq. The injustice against the Yazidi and other minorities. However, we haven't heard from what has happened in Africa on the part of Islamic extremists, slaughtering, killings. This is what have suffered people in Gaza, children, elderly, women. We intend to be intellectuals here. Nowadays, this is a crucial moment due to the recent events. The scenario is influenced by all these events. But just imagine if there were some young people, even European youth, who start becoming to adhere to the ISIS. They don't have this culture, religious culture. Because yesterday we made a difference between is Muslim and non-Muslim blood, but this is not. This can be understood wrongly. So people, these youth may decide to go to Iraq and to fight with ISIS. Who has founded this movement? Who has started Al-Qaeda? These are questions that have to be asked. Perhaps international politics, which has not moral principles, or the answer might be, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying this to say that we all suffer with these events, and we are all afraid that these events hit everyone. So we have to collaborate all together and face these phenomena and this violence in the name of religion, whichever the religion. We have to search for the real causes. We have to search for what our president says. We have to cooperate and to resist to that event. After the revolution in Tunisia, we have behaved properly, I think. We are multifaceted in Islam. There are divergences between us in the way we elaborate the Constitution, for example. And sometimes we have seen violence flourish in our country, but we have chosen dialogue and reconciliation, and we have found a middle way, and have set up a modern constitution we're proud of. Although there are still some violent groups, but I hope that we can defeat that event. I conclude by saying that none of us is without responsibility of what is happening in the world. It doesn't matter whether we belong to Islam or other religions or ideologies. We all have to agree and walk hand in hand and to think how to solve these reasons and these causes for violence. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Majeed al-Najjar, for your presentation and for having reminded us of some important issues. We can talk about these issues later in the debate, but I would like to remember 3 points. The search for the real causes for violence, which today afflict many countries. Often, people say that causes are based on religion, but in fact this is a very bad use of religion, because there are deeper causes that lie on ignorance, feeling of aggression, injustice. All these afflict populations. There's another issue as well that we have to face, to remember that those who have developed these reasons for violence are responsible. We have to face the reality. We have to look at reality face at the face. We all have to follow these paths, because sometimes violence can affect each of us. So we have to collaborate all together to uproot violence. Let's commit ourselves on the ways to develop brotherhood and end injustice, and to deepen the knowledge of the values that are in all of us. And we have to foster dialogue, so that state has a role in this. We have to replace sovereignty in these